Hello, everyone. Welcome to another NIL webinar as we get ready for NACDA Convention 2024. I am your host, Christy Dosh, the founder of Business of College Sports. And this is a series we're doing to get everyone excited about all the great NIL programming we're going to have at convention this year. Our time is limited at convention, so we have so many great topics that we wanted to bring you this webinar series to make sure we covered all of the interesting things that you need to know that are going on in NIL around the country. And this program in particular is one I'm really excited to talk to you all about because I first learned about it as it was coming together initially. And now they're over a year in and we've seen some results, and I'm so excited to have them chat with you about it. So I have invited Gary Verone from BYU to join us and Carl Spencer from NIL Real Estate. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for all that you do, Christy.
I'll take it. I told Gary before we hit record that when people ask me about schools that are doing NIL really well, BYU is always one that comes to mind for me. And part of that is because of the emphasis I've seen BYU put on professional development and developing athletes for the lives they're going to lead after graduation. And this program we're going to talk about today in particular, I think showcases that. Gary, I want you to sort of start off and tell me, sort of what was your mission and what is important to you when it comes to putting together your NIL programming for your student athletes?
Yeah, great question. So obviously we're a religious institution. We have a sponsoring church that oversees our operation, and there was some level of reservation around the NIL landscape, not knowing what it would look like across the board once July 1, 2021 hit. But we were able to send a message back to our administration and our board indicating that all the values that we wanted to incorporate and emphasize lined up well with our core values as an institution, which are primarily developing young people for life beyond college. And our mission statement here at BYU is enter to learn, go forth to serve. We try to incorporate that as a big part of our NIL landscape. And we're very blessed to have such a great community of BYU fans, alumni, Cougar Nation as we call it, that wanted to step up and find innovative ways to help us in the NIL landscape, one of which was our Built Bar deal that many people are probably familiar with, that they've been involved with NIL for quite some time. Another one happens to be with what Carl does with NIL Real Estate, and we're trying to tether the NIL with student-athlete development. And I tell that message all the time to different peers and associates that I talk to and I work with, is that you can't not mingle those two together. There's such a perfect union between that. You have to move forward on that front as best you can if you want to make it work, and if you want to get the sign off from those that are those important stakeholders that you want to be supportive of you. And we've been responded with just a great message and a lot of positivity from our fan base, our administration, and it's been really successful for us to see our athletes blossom in this new space.
Carl, tell us a little bit about what's your connection to BYU and how did these conversations sort of start in terms of your background and how you could serve student athletes through NIL?
Thank you, Christy. Yeah, so it was probably just over a year and a half ago. I had sat down as a role of what we call a PC coach. It's a productivity coach for our office. I trained new agents from school to production where they learned how to actually do real estate transactions. At the time, I had an intern that was running cross country for BYU. And I mentioned after I stepped down, I would really love to continue to mentor and educate and help people. She said, you should go talk to the Built for Life Center. And I was like, what is that? And she actually got on my email and sent an email to this director, Gary Verone, as if it was me. We should go to lunch sometime. And there, I tell the joke, but I give it as a true example that you can enter this space not knowing a lot, but learn, because he explained NIL. And I said, who's Neil? Who is that? Like, I don't know what that is. And I Googled it. And from that point on, which we hear so much, people say things like that. We've launched a national company that has expanded to 182 universities are using us. And we focus just in educating, giving back to the athletes and giving them an opportunity to leverage this NIL space and truly learn to benefit financially, but as well as educationally and professionally in the space of real estate, learning it all. So
And in case
it
we
was really,
buried the lead or people didn't read the description of the webinar, this program helps student athletes study for and eventually take their real estate exam so that they could potentially work in real estate after graduation, or maybe they're more interested in investing in real estate with some of this NIL money that they're earning. Have I got that right? Good description.
yeah, yeah. And I can't tell how many that we offer a referral opportunity is what we call it, where they can get a referral license. But at the same time, we have 20 or 30 this last year that we've placed into a real estate career with whatever brokerage it is that they have locally. Even from UCLA, enhancing just a relationship with a mother and a son, where she's a full-time agent up in Sacramento, and her son is now entering the life to join his mom after he's done football. It's just a really cool opportunity to just generate and build a lot of life skills.
And Gary, can you talk a little bit about what it looks like from your side? So you start having these conversations with Carl. How do you integrate this and really get this up and running? It's at a lot of schools now, but you guys were sort of the pilot program for this. How did you get this in front of your student athletes and make this accessible?
Yeah, so first of all, just going back a little bit, the sell to us was everybody wants to buy a piece of real estate in their life. Whether you want to do it in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, everybody has that on their radar. And everybody wants to make more money, to earn more income, whether it's passive or a side hustle, etc. And when Carl presented the message, I was like, yes, we want this. Don't leave BYU. Make BYU your first program, to your point, the pilot program. So I was all gung ho about it. We talked to our athletic director, Tom Homo. He loved the idea of licensing athletes, giving them a career in their back pocket upon graduation if they wanted it. Not that they had to use it, but it was an option for them. But Carl's message was also, hey, this is not just for athletes, also for staff potentially. If you have any staff that want to go and moonlight in the real estate space or looking to buy and sell a home. So it just made sense across the board. And so I told Carl, we got to get you in front of athletes as soon as possible. This was June, early July of 2022. And obviously school hadn't started yet for the fall semester. So I said, we need to have you come back as soon as possible. We started arranging many meetings with student athletes, mostly our fall sport athletes who were going to be on campus in July and August. And the reception was so positive and so great, overwhelmingly positive. And I said, okay, we're going to build you up to some bigger meetings in the fall semester. And we plugged in Carlos everywhere we could with our student development classes that we teach. We have a Built for Life Center that Carl mentioned, where we house my area, academics, etc., kind of a one-stop shop. And we had several meetings in there, from football to our Olympic sport athletes, saying, here's what possible, here are the benefits involved, and here's why it makes sense for you to do it now. Maybe not while you're in season, but now while you're still in college. Because as a freshman, sophomore, junior, wherever you're at, you can increase your knowledge, develop yourself as a person, and also graduate into a referral or a career in this space and make some real income. And Carl will talk about some of those examples of athletes making real income for doing what they were going to do anyways, which is buy a home or look to buy a home upon graduation.
Carl,
Yeah.
let me ask you, student athletes sort of complain or lament that NIL is tough to fit into their schedule as it is because of their sport and their training and their classes. How are you talking to them about fitting in this additional sort of education on top of the classes they're already taking, and how flexible is it in terms of them being able to fit it into their schedule?
Well, the beauty of what we have, we made a partnership with a school here in Utah. They're actually called RD Academics, and they've white labeled into our system. They have a year-long open opportunity for them to enter the real estate school. Now, since they're doing a referral license, that's 120 hours for the Utah real estate license. That 120 hours, though, is what we call on demand. So at their own pace, whenever they want, and it's hit or miss. Some athletes can cruise through it within like 2 months. We tend to see in our summer months like a lot progress really fast and kind of cram it and get it all done. And then they take their national and state exams there locally. We made agreements with Pearson VUE that they can do that testing there. And on top of it, we see a lot that say, hey, my sport's coming up, just give me a pause. But that's the beauty of having it here and having it on demand. It really gives them an opportunity to take a step back and give a chance to do it. the most successful things that have always come from this, right, is unfortunately, and we hate even talking about it, you never know when an athlete happens. And nobody gets to say it's going to be this person or this person. And it's so beneficial for us whenever we have that opportunity or school conference. So and so is really down. They just had a season end injury. What can you do? And even just sitting and teach them more about what exists beyond just sport. That's passion. So for those athletes, they advance their just board or
And Gary, what have you seen in terms of your athletes' ability to complete the education? Like, I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, but kind of what percentage of them have completed the education required and actually sat for the exam?
I think in the initial wave, it was a very high percentage. I don't have the exact percentage, but I think it was probably around 75% in the initial wave and excitement. So very high, and there were some extra incentives that Carl and his crew tied to that as part of a kind of a carrot opportunity for them. But I will say that the great thing about working in college athletics, or one of the great things, is you have a new crop of athletes every year. So every semester and every year, we get between 120 to 140 new athletes across our 21 sports here at BYU. And every year, there's the same level of excitement that I saw back in,
Mhm.
June, July, August 2022 with our new athletes who are saying, how do I do this? Sign me up, get me involved now. I talked to some gymnastics athletes last night about the opportunity, and I mean, there's a constant hunger for this. So right now, I couldn't give you the exact percentage, but it's very high. If you finish the class, it's a very high likelihood that you're going to go to licensure, and at that point, you're already hungry enough. You've demonstrated the work ethic to go and
Mhm.
get those referrals or go and get opportunities to help put some money in your pockets and learn kind of the landscape and the ecosystem of transacting a deal and settling a deal, which is extremely valuable in terms of the knowledge and development for the athletes too.
Yeah, and Carl, I'm wondering, and really for both of you, but I was going to throw it to Carl first. Are you largely seeing athletes wanting to do this who already have some familiarity, like they have a parent who's in real estate, or like this has been on their radar as maybe a potential career path? Or is it people who didn't really think about it and are like, wait a minute, but my skill set fits this. I could do this.
I think I think it's a mix. Majority of it is they know something about real estate. They've heard about it. So real estate as an industry, right? That's your number one economic driver, deciding if interest rates are high, economy slows down and inflation lowers, right? So real estate really drives and moves our economy. People understand that. And that's why there's 1.6 million real estate agents, well, as of last year, that are in. Um, it's all over the place. I think for me, though, the cool tell that I love is just the athletes that stumble upon it. They learn, they want to. And one of the greatest analogies to give is people watch our education videos, find us organically. If you were to take, and leaving politics completely out of this, if you were to take and say, what is the separation between poverty and what we would call wealth in the United States? It has not, like, there's other factors to it, but if there's one factor that reads highest, it is a primary ownership. The only residence live in. That really drives a lot of aspects. But BYU even had, they're the cultivating agent. They're the ones that pioneer and test everything to make sure that it's working right and going. They even said that our first athlete that actually didn't do a real estate license. My father's a developer, builds, grandmother's real estate, does it. And so this young freshman, a track athlete, actually goes and said, my father says I need to get a loan that I can now, join the family business afterwards. And BYU immediately contacted us, and we got with Gary, and we found a great loan officer's license state that his father's at locally, and we already orchestrated that whole opportunity for there to be able to, again, family giving the input at the same time you have outside world just giving input. That real estate hot topic.
I love that. Gary, has there been anything that has surprised you about implementing this program in terms of, how student athletes have perceived it, or individual student athletes who've surprised you? What does that look like?
Yeah, so at BYU, we have the highest percentage of married athletes in the country. It's kind of one of our quirks that we have. It ranges between 18 to 22%, which is extremely high. I mean, orders of magnitude higher than, other institutions. And so because of that, we have a unique dynamic. Those married athletes are oftentimes looking for ways to establish themselves with their spouse and maybe with a kid or two. Like we have
Hmm.
athletes who have children as well while they're in college with their spouse. Our starting quarterback a couple of years ago, Jared Hall, graduated and left with a baby girl and his wife. And so a lot of those athletes are looking for real estate as a way to kind of get their foot in the door with being a full adult, right? And having that status. And so I think for our athletes, they're naturally drawn to opportunity where they can move into full adulting even before they leave
Hmm.
our campus. And so that's been one of the unique things that I think has really shown me how impressive this program is and kind of the forward thinking nature of Carl and his crew. The other thing would be how many questions I get from outside individuals about this, different institutions, NIL coordinators or directors saying, is this really something that works on your campus? Tell us about the good, the bad, the ugly. And I have to sing praises constantly. I mean, I haven't seen anything bad or terrible about the program. Now, obviously, there is work involved. Like Carl mentioned, you have to go through schooling, pass your exams before you can get the licensure status. But if you're willing to put that work in, you have a lifetime worth of reward on the back end. And that's something that I've been really impressed with. The other thing is we had, and I don't mean to take your thunder here, Carl, we had an athlete who was going to buy a starter home for he and his wife. He was a tennis player here, and he got his license, very intelligent young man, and he was able to make several thousands of dollars. I don't mean like 2,000, I mean several thousands of dollars for doing what he was already going to do anyway, which is buy a home for he and his wife. He was able to pocket that and go through the experience of settling a home, the purchase process, etc. And now he's got a ton of money to go and spend. Hopefully, he'll invest it well, but he can go buy a bunch of Jordans or a new car if he wanted to in the process. So,
I love it. So, Carl, this sort of started at BYU, but you mentioned earlier how far it's expanded. And I think when we talk about NIL, there tend to be topics that only apply to the Power Five or only apply to the top 1% of athletes who have, hundreds of thousand followers on social media. Where is this a good fit at? And does it look different from one school to the next, or is it largely all the same? What kind of schools have signed on and seen success with this?
It's again, we have 182 universities have athletes enrolled in it. And the best part is some of those universities don't even know. And that's what we love. We send them emails, right? But I feel terrible for them. They get bombarded with NIL emails every
Yeah.
day. And we send updates for compliance saying, hey, so and so is registered, and obviously doing our compliance part to everything. However, some of our best schools are really the ones that are like, we want to do life cultivation. We want to build them up. Off my head, University of Washington's really great on that. They have a great program along with BYU. They talk a ton. The University of Florida, Ben is doing a great job over there,
Go
right?
Raiders.
He's and we've done multiple webinars with them to be able to talk and kind of say, hey, how to support you guys. I'm even traveling next month to UCLA just to teach about how to finance and get into real estate and how to help some of these athletes just learn. So we have a lot of that where we have our top big schools that are really well known. And then, our great success too is our underdogs, kind of your Youngstown State, meeting with them. I love working with them. They're a phenomenal group. And they have a lot of athletes enrolled and are progressing because they're hungry to learn things.
Mhm.
Rice, Houston, ironically, I haven't met with either of those universities, and yet each of them have athletes that are graduating and completing this course just because they're excited to learn for themselves. And I think the thing that sets it apart is hats off to all of the top number one great athletes that are out there. We love them. We're grateful for them. They're entertaining to watch in the sport. We're excited for their development. And at the same time, there's 97% of the other athletes, particularly female Olympic sports, where we're not seeing of NIL movement and work. And predominantly, that's one of our biggest groups. We do a lot with female athletes and coaches and teams where we support and do specific education classes just for them. And I mean, we don't have time to go into all of it, but since we have our partnerships with Keller Williams National, called KWRI, we work with their nonprofit, which is KW Next Gen, where we offer coaching through a program. And there's a lot of different things that kind of tie into underutilized groups of athletes. That's what I'm going to call it. The group that's going to drive the nation's economy forward in the normal career field.
Can I just piggyback on that, Christy?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I love, one of the things that I love about this program is it's a universal NIL opportunity, right? And oftentimes we're going to see the lesser known, lesser resourced programs, teams, athletes make the most out of these opportunities. Yeah, it would behoove you to have 100,000 followers. That way you could showcase, hey, I'm an agent now for NIL real estate. Come use me if you're buying or selling property, etc. But that's not where the magic's happening. That's not what we're seeing. We're seeing it with the golfers, the tennis players, the track athletes who have ties, familial ties or friendly ties to developers or loan officers, etc. And for them to be able to capture NIL opportunities when previously they saw themselves as being foreclosed, probably because they're not football or basketball or baseball or a premier athlete on their own team, the last individual on the bench can be as successful, if not more successful, than that starter on that team. And it's a level playing field for everybody, but it's also going to reward those that are willing to work the hardest and show the most commitment.
And Gary, I asked you this already about how your athletes have been progressing through this. Carl, do you have any numbers, even if it's just sort of ballpark numbers you can share with us across those universities now where you've got athletes involved in this? How many you see finishing up the program and getting their license? I know some of them are still in progress and haven't had time to do it yet, but what does it look like right now?
So if we go off our last 12 months, the one that we don't track the greatest, but we're pretty sure we have a good mark on, is if they're not part of our program, but we've sent them off to do a career. And we're about 20 or 30 that we've been able to place that way this last year. UCF is a good example where they do that job placement right after school to give them a good chance. Inside our program, we've had 678 athletes actually enroll over time through our program. We have some schools again that have 40. BYU has like 80. It's amazing. Then you drop down, you have some schools that just have one. And when you break that down even more, it's depending on how busy they are or not. So right now we probably have about 140, 150 that are progressing through the actual hours still. We've got a pile of about 30 that are still in test prep. That means they're done with the 120 hours, finishing their exam. And then we've got, 10 to 20 that have licensed and gone through the process for the referral status. And let me just touch a little bit on that because I try to teach this a lot to people. Our program's designed to give a referral license as an opportunity. But again, our goal is just to give that chance that they understand the importance of what real estate can do in their life. Whether they end up doing this program or not, we love taking care of them and helping them, mentoring them, because they will most likely buy a home at some point in their life. Right. So beyond that, just the 678 that have enrolled in the program, gone through some courses, watched videos, we probably have 1,000 to 1,500 that have gone through actual education content that didn't end up enrolling in this program because that's not what they're designed in. But they just want to mentor room with us or have us come to campus and teach. And that's been life-changing to see those athletes just eat up. So it's been great.
And I maybe should have asked you this earlier. I took for granted that I know what a referral license is, but for those who don't know, maybe we should have stopped and told them that. What is a referral license?
Yeah, so the joke, the funny way I tell it, right, is if you have $500,000 to spend, do you want to go grab a young student athlete that just got their real estate licenses and never done anything with contract before? Probably not. But we want to still give them an opportunity to gain a portion of the money. And that's something that's very normal in our real estate field. When I pass clients that move to another state, I would contact a trustworthy agent in that area and say, I have a client moving to Georgia. Would you give me 25% for this client if they close a transaction? That's a normal practice we experience here in our industry. That's what we've plugged in as a referral license. So they earn a license with the state of Utah. The Utah Division of Real Estate's been amazing working with us and very unique, obviously, in how they're letting us do this. But that referral license is good in all 50 states. So if they can hang on to it, whether they're just in their schooling portion or for 20 years after, they can still have an opportunity to go be a doctor, construction worker, engineer, and they can, whenever they hear those words, I need to buy or sell a house, they can refer that to a trusting agent in the network or whoever they know and collect, 25%, sometimes a little more if they need to, sometimes a little less if they need to, when that transaction closes. But the agent that's doing the work is someone that's been in it for years. They know the cost, they know the liabilities, they know what to handle. Alex was a great example where we reversed it and gave him back a healthy portion because it's his home. But he made $6,000 as a tennis player that had just left the tennis team. And if you can find another NIL deal that says, hey, even though you've left the tennis team and you're kind of done, let's honor an NIL deal for you and let's give you $6,000. That's what's so beneficial. But to see his face when we're walking through that house together, doing the final walkthrough with that new build, and it was with Dar Horton, a wonderful national builder, and he said, thank you. I'm excited about this because I can use this education and go get another one another day and start growing as a 24, 25-year-old kid, start getting investment property. So a referral license is used in that sense. It's have a license, you just don't actively write contract.
Love it. Is there, I'll start with Gary and then I'll go to you, Carl. I want you both to kind of have one last word on this. If we've got NIL directors and other folks on campuses who are watching this and are thinking about, either one, whether they should, Carl, have you come speak or dig in more on this program. Maybe they have some student athletes who are in this program and they're like, wait a minute, I know we've got a few, I should have learned more about this. What's your advice for them, Gary, in terms of, pursuing this or integrating this into what they're already doing?
I would say if you're looking for a W in the NIL space, this is an easy one that's already teed up that we've seen so many benefits from. I can't recommend it highly enough. And that's just all due to Carl and his team. I will also add, if you're thinking, well, that's a Utah thing, I'm in Tennessee or I'm in Washington or California. Carl has agents, local agents all over the country spread out that are there to help athletes progress through their program and isn't confined to just being in Utah County, Utah. So don't think that this is an opportunity that you can't really tap into because you're outside of our state. He has agents spread all over the place. And I don't remember how many exactly, but it's in the dozens at this point. So everybody has someone within a couple hours drive who's there to help support the program.
Carl, anything else you think folks need to know? I was going to bring up that part of the way this got spread to so many schools is it's available through Open Doors now. I think I ended up writing that story when you guys first announced that partnership. So that's how people might have athletes in the program, even though the school isn't really aware of the program. Your athletes might have found it through Open Doors, right?
Yep. We have Open Doors. That's a phenomenal education series they have on their app for the athletes, their own education set of videos and what they do. There's a lot of athletes that watch those. They're TikTok style videos to teach them about the real estate. But even more so, people ask all the time, how do you enter the NIL space and gain access to all these athletic directors and stuff? Let me give credit back to BYU and Tom Homo. When I meet with Tom we do like quarterly checkups where he wants to know where the athletes are. People don't know this about him. And if this gets out, but we meet with him and he says, who's finished the classes? I'll tell him a name and he will know what sport they're in. He knows his athletes very well, which blows my mind that he knows 600 and something athletes by heart. But he knows who they are and what they're doing, and he wants to progress, and he introduces it to other people. And when other athlete universities want to know about it, they almost rarely call me. They contact for other NIL directors, coordinators of development, compliance people. You have it, and the industry has learned that they could trust us. one of the big things that we were talking about before this webinar, to put the proof in the pudding, as we would call it, we're actually in filing our paper to the IRS to move ourselves to a 501c3, to truly become a nonprofit where we want to explain we're not in this just for us. We're in this to cultivate and grow. And that reach from Keller Williams, 180,000 licensed athletes, licensed agents, I believe, is our last stat. We have a very, very strong network we can reach across and reach anywhere in the nation. And even that more so, they have been great enough too to say, if it's a mom and her dad or someone that's not even of our brokerage, don't take that opportunity away from them. Let them still cultivate and help their athlete. We don't want to just hold all the market share. That's greed. We want to support this development as well. So we work with brokerages all over the nation that are not a part of our original plan that we created. Even that RD Academics is owned by some gentlemen that own the ERA franchises here in Utah. They're wonderful individuals that just all come together to support athletics. Development. Fun.
I love it. I really love this program, and I'm glad we got to dig in on it a little more and hope that more folks take advantage this opportunity to learn about it and then tell their student athletes about it so that more athletes can get involved with this. So Gary, Carl, thank you so much for giving us some of your time and telling us more about this. And Carl, if people do want to get in touch and learn more about the program, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
If they want to remember, Carl at nilrealestate.com. That's my email. It's nice and easy. They can also just find us on the website and click the chat icon and reach us there. Any athletic directors, anybody like that, I give them myself.
Okay. We'll get the website linked up in our description so people have got easy access to that. Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you, Christy.
Thank you, Christy. I really appreciate it.